People with ADHD and all mental health are looked down on by the world around them, but we will protect you here. We exist to motivate you, to inspire you, to listen and love the story you want to tell. We are here to understand you and to help you gain the confidence to truly be yourself. And you just might be more powerful than you think you are. Make no mistake, we've got your back. Welcome to Lobow Spark. Something for someone.
Spartans! What is your profession?
Hello there again. I'm, of course, your host, Lobow, and I want to remind everyone listening that Lobow Spark has started a fundraising effort for Crisis Text Line. We have a goal of $19 per episode, as $19 supports one person in their time of absolute crisis. And I think all of you listening know what is meant by that. If you would like to donate through our fundraiser called Lauren's Infinity, the link to do so is in the episode's description.
$1 would go a long, long way.
Lobow Spark is proudly sponsored by Feather, Twitter with a purpose. If you need help managing your online relationships, go to www.feathercrm, all one word, .io. Lobow Spark is also supported with the help of Leo, Guinan, and Kirk Hofstrom.
Today's group episode topic is ADHD and shame. How does it present itself? How do you cope with it? Are there strategies to deal with it? We discuss how shame presents itself to each of us individually and offer up suggestions to each other on how to address it. A special shout out to Justin Allingham from Australia for coming up with today's topic. ADHD warriors featured in this episode are Geraint Evans, Leo Guinan, Kirk Hofstrom, Dorsey McFadden, BlushingCrafter, Justin Allingham, Jesse J. Anderson, Laura Bortoli, Sarah Delano, and Pearl. Together, we are something for someone.
One really special shout out to BlushingCrafter. She has been through the worst that I have ever seen in terms of getting diagnosed with ADHD. And she didn't quit, and she stuck with it, and she is now officially diagnosed with ADHD and stuck it out this entire time. Blushing. That is unbelievable. You're an amazing person. You know you're an inspiration, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Today's topic is ADHD and shame. And the person that brought it up wants to tell a story about his experience with it. And after that, we will all chime in on why ADHD people feel more shame than I guess normal people do. This topic was brought up by Justin from Australia, and I'm going to let him take it over and introduce why he chose it and tell a short story.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. And at some point, just as a side note, I'm going to still be rejection-sensitive dysphoria tips of Mr. Jesse J. Anderson on his new. I saw your newsletter. I was psyched about it. I've never met you before. I just wanted to say hi. Anyway, shame. Because I'm a teacher and because I kind of live in the house I was like abused in as a kid, the experience of shame for people with ADHD, but also for people with trauma issues, and also the comorbidities between those two, where sometimes we just see it as, you know, an ADHD tick. I think people sometimes don't look at the deeper and more foundational issues behind that. So I got diagnosed when I was 42. So basically I just spent 40 years thinking I sucked. And when you have that period of time, even with that uncertain kind of personal insight, once that time's gone, it's gone. So as a teacher now, I see kids in the classroom, and indeed adults in adult lives leading kids in the classroom who are, in my opinion, unconsciously driven by the things they fear to face. And I think it's our responsibility. This is just my personal insight. I think that that kind of stuff unavoidably affects your self-concept, and because it affects your self-concept, that leads directly into the things you do, don't do, the things you try, won't try, crosses over with anxiety. So I'd just be interested to hear people's perspectives on that, because as much as I can appreciate how important it is for people in the sort of ADHD education space to help people have a basic understanding of what they've gone through and how it will affect them, I aspire to a future where we can feel less broken, where life needs to be less difficult for us. I don't accept that that's intractable and unsolvable. I just think the people who can solve it are in different rooms, doing different things and all being scared. And I think when you put us in a room like this, that's some Mighty Morphin Power Ranger shit. That's some Captain Planet shit, but for the human soul.
You pump me up, Justin. I love it.
Spartacus.
It's awesome. Awesome, Justin. That was awesome. So I'm just going to go based on how y'all are on the screen. So I'm going to start with Pearl and her. Everyone, Pearl is new. She was the most recent episode and has quite a story.
It's not so much shame. It's just that you become used to being at the end of the classroom, like in the back seat, even though you're in the front. You've gotten used to always falling behind because you needed extra time reading. You've gotten used to not being able to answer the question right away because you didn't get a chance to do all of your homework the night before like everybody else did, or that you didn't understand the number system that went on with it. There was always some kind of hang up. Like with everything, there's always something. And I think a lot of us who have ADHD don't realize we always have some kind of, we either have some kind of like an autistic streak or some kind of learning disability or some kind of, there's always something. Each one of us is very, very complex. So each one of us is fighting something. With mine is dyscalculia, with another person might be dyslexia. And we've gotten used to sort of like falling behind, even though we're giving it our 100%. And that's what the shaming is. It's like you always feel that, oh, I know I'm going to fall behind. Okay, I got to run faster. Or I know I'm going to fall behind because I'm going to say something that is just going to be like, it's not going to be in the curriculum and it's going to be off topic. And then I'm going to drag the person into another conversation. And then they're going to tell me I talk too much or too fast. You're always waiting for someone to tell you that you didn't fall under or you didn't fall in line. If you come from a Persian culture, if you come from a Middle Eastern culture, we're very open people. We will critique, we're very open. Everything we will tell you in your face. And that's not out of hate, it's out of love, but you're going to have to be able to digest that somehow. And that's been what's the hardest thing for me, is that I've had to get used to constant criticism. So now I do it to myself. So it's like, I feel like I self-shame, even though I have this like complete straight face and I'm like this. Inside I'm going, like I'm tearing myself down. And I'm like, what the fuck am I tearing myself down for? Like, I didn't say anything. And every day it's something. And even when there isn't anything, I am tearing myself down. Like, I didn't do this right. I didn't do that right. And it's like, what the hell? All these other people do things wrong, or they do it so-called half-ass, as we say it here in LA. And they go about their business. But if I do something halfway, or if I don't do something meticulously enough or perfectly, it's like, oh my God, what the fuck did I do? Shit. Oh no, what if this, what if that? And nobody realizes it. And I'm like sitting there like, yep. And inside, there's like a roller coaster happening. And that self-shaming has to stop. And it's like, it has to calm down. And I've tried so many things. I've managed to minimize it. I've managed to cut down on it. I managed to filter it. I managed to edit it. But it's like a thing that goes on and replays, like I said before, in my amygdala. And I'm not sure if any of you feel like there's a brain within the brain going on all the time in the background. And recently, in like the past 5 months, I started taking L-theanine at nights, a really good from a wonderful lab. And it's like green tea extract. I take it at nights. I have a wonderful sleep, and it turned off this background noise. And I was like, wow, there's a way to turn it off. The self-shaming is like, it's disturbing. It's just auditory bullshit that just goes on. So on days that I don't take it, I hear it.
So in terms of the self-shaming that you experience in the roller coaster, we do this to balance that out. So when you're telling yourself how bad you are, we are all here to tell you how good you are.
I'm so self-critical that
I know.
It's so hard to hear that. You know what I mean? It's almost
can
like
I just comment on this very, very quickly, because
Yeah.
it's an amazing story. Shame is used by parents and teachers to control children. That's a fact.
Yep. Oh, I know.
It's a fact. So what happens is you're shamed at home.
Mm.
Now, okay, if your mind is like a house and I kick in a door, the door's still going to be kicked in and other people can walk through. So what happens is, as a parent, out of love, because that's the sad part, it is out of love, but it's anyway, basically your parents kick it in, your teachers follow.
Yeah.
So
and you
it's
become your
not
own parent
you.
and you become your own teacher. When your
You
teacher's
put it
doing
in your own head.
you
It's called
literally
the inner critic.
Yeah, the inner it sits there, and it's like, get the hell out of there, you know, like get the hell out. Like I want to be able to go and do things normally and come back and don't have to think about it for like 24 hours.
I want you to think about it like this. To cut a long story short, imagine your mind's like a computer, but not all the coding was done by you. Some of it's you, some of it's not you. So when it's you, you go, that comes from a place of love, I choose that. When it's not you, you can hear the background noise. Sometimes it will be my mother, my father, my whoever. You can hear it, but you don't have to pay attention to it. Think of it as an imaginary friend, like in the Russell Crowe movie. He sees the person who's not really there. He says, there's some habits of mine I choose not to indulge.
Right.
But everything you're experiencing is incredibly human and actually not your fault. And I'm happy to talk to you more about it anytime.
I'm always here.
Because this is something I'm good at. Because I'm fucked up too. Yeah. Okay. Next caller.
Awesome. Next, Sarah.
Hello. And yes, it's been so hard for me. I'm so excited. I'm like, I want to talk. I'm over. So I'm using the visualization. So I relate to both Justin and Pearl. Like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I'm not alone. But I'm gonna throw in the twist that my mother is a narcissist. So I was raised in a fashion where if I made the family look bad, if I did something that made anyone in the family look bad, so I never stepped out of line. I was always the good kid. I never got in trouble. I was academically fantastic, and I never made any waves. So up until I was 18, I didn't realize anything was wrong. Then I went to college. And whoo, tsunami of shame there. I started off going into veterinary science, which I'm very good in life sciences. I can tell you, I can make things grow. I can hands-on biology. I can do that.
Very much an ADHD kind of a thing is science and biology. We can make things grow. Yep, I know. I got. Yep.
But having to vomit up that information, I couldn't. So I did very poorly on the solely academic aspects of the veterinary sciences. And I have other memory issues, the kissing cousins, as I like to call them, because I don't like comorbidity. I have kissing cousins down. I have a family wreath. So I went into communications. I have a bachelor's in communications because it's easy. ADHD brain right away. But it took me 2 years to get there, to admit to my family that I wasn't doing well in school, because I had always done well in school and I didn't want to make the family look bad. So that was a rough time. And then I got married. That was a mistake. And the marriage fell apart, and I didn't want to get a divorce. There was nothing like awful or anything like that, but we were just two different people, and marriage wasn't the best idea. So I got married, and it was falling apart. Now my parents have been together at the time it was 25 years. I was very shamed in admitting that I couldn't make my marriage work, that my husband liked other things other than me, and that he didn't want to go to counseling. He didn't want to talk about it. So there was a whole mountain of shame there that I didn't know how to deal with, and still opening that box. I'm gonna slam all these boxes are going back in their shelf after this podcast is over. And so I deal with like relationship shame, and if I can't produce a perfect product, like coming out, like stepping out and going onto TikTok, making live videos was a big step in my therapy for me, because it's not perfect. Any of you have seen any of my videos will know that it's not perfect. Like I stutter, I mess up, I use the all things that in my brain are going, no, you shouldn't even be letting this out of the TikTok vault. Like this needs to go into a fire and die. Mm. So for me to do that, it's a big part of my therapy. But if you ever need me to be silly or anything like that, I'm totally game for that, because I know no one's expecting perfection from silly. I'm very easygoing. So I don't have shame in doing silly things.
Well, you also, sorry to interrupt you, Sarah,
oh, no.
But like, I mean, after we spoke, you emailed me someone to get in contact with for a logo. Then you emailed me, how can I help you on TikTok with lives? You know, I mean, that's, take some pride in that. Like, I mean, it's not just being silly. You're legitimately helpful.
I prefer to, I'm definitely good behind the sscenes. Like for me
and that's
to be
great.
A front face is a big step, because I prefer to make other people look good. And I think that might come from the shame of like, hey, if I make you look good, that means I'm not looking bad. Or
but it also comes from the place of us believing that we couldn't be in charge of something, because if we were in charge of something and fucked it up, we'd be too visible. And emotionally, we'd be too visible, because we would be committing ourselves to something we believed in front of people who regularly didn't believe in us. So it's not that you can't be in the front, it's that you were told you couldn't be in the front, and you believed it at a time where you didn't have any choice.
Truth.
So remember that, little girl.
I'm just about as old as you, believe it or not.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That's fantastic. Justin, you're on point today. I mean, it's 7 a.m. and you're on point. I could never be.
This was his suggestion, so he's probably done some thought about it.
He may have. Kirk, Mr. I'm engaged now.
Hi. Oh man. Okay. So this episode, it was funny. I saw the email and I was like, oh, that's a good topic. And then like 10 minutes later, I was like, oh, I could talk about this for like 6 hours by myself. Just on my own experiences, I could just talk about this for days and not stop. So I got, as a lot of people here already know, a couple of people who don't, I got diagnosed super young. I was like 2nd grade. Really amazing teacher pointed it out, like just super lucky. But I had, and on top of that, I have fantastic parents, like the best. They are super loving, super understanding, give really good advice.
You are very, very lucky about that.
Yeah. Yes. I know I am. Yeah. 100%. And for a long time, I didn't even want to talk about how good my parents were, because I felt guilty. I felt guilty talking about having good parents. And then I also felt guilty and I felt shame, because I had ADHD and my brain worked differently than theirs. So if I was doing something different or bad, I didn't want to tell them. And like, that's not their fault. They gave me all the support, everything I could have ever needed. But if something was not going to plan, they didn't hear about it. Whether it was school, whether it was relationship, whether it was friends, whether it was, when I got to college and they said, oh, you can either give full consent for your parents to see your grades or not. And I was like, haha, no, definitely not. We were like, nope, I'm good. Terrible idea. That backfired immediately, which means more shame. And I don't even like, this is something that is in my head all the time, nonstop, about everything. Like, if it's not perfect in my own head, then I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm not going to get help about it. I'm not going to have another conversation about it. Like, it's just not going to get brought up because I'm ashamed. And even in jobs that I did really good at, even in subjects that I was really great at, like, if I had a problem, either I'm figuring this out on my own or nobody's going to hear about it. It didn't matter what it was, no matter how successful or how terrible it was. Like, my apartment could be on fire, and I'm really like, I got this. It's fine. I don't want to tell anybody that I accidentally lit my apartment on fire. And I'd let the whole apartment burn down before I told anyone, there's fire, even if it's been there for 4.5 hours burning slowly, just because I didn't want to say anything. And I don't know if I even now have the best strategy to deal with it all yet. To sort of combat this, it's you can sort of go on the other end and you just start saying everything. Okay, here, this isn't perfect. Okay, here, hey, can you help me with this? Here, hey, I did something dumb. And then you're just, everything's out there. And that's hard to do. But it's the only way to, you can't really practice not being ashamed of how your brain works. And you can't really practice not being ashamed of, you know, the decisions you've decided to make because of how your brain works. So you just have to do it. You just have to practice in real life with your boss, with your trusted friends, with your trusted coworkers, with your partner. And
I have a suggestion for you on how to practice that if you want. There's my lady was just walking past here. Basically, to cut a long story short, I only met her because I learned how, because I wasn't very whatever with women, basically. And I ended up learning game. And as part of learning game, I learned something called social freedom. So basically, what I got very good at, because I wasn't very confident myself, is just being unedited in an inconsequential way, provided my behavior wasn't affecting anyone around me. My point being that if you're more comfortable about the everyday things, like basically if you have a whim and it would impress you or make you laugh, follow it, especially when it's just a personality thing. It's like inconsequential, it wouldn't hurt anyone. And then in my experience, you will be more confident about asserting yourself on the higher order things, because we got judged for the little things. So it's like, who wants to put a foot out of line on the big things? You deserve, but also the amount of RAM that internal analysis takes is huge. So I felt everything you're saying really hard.
Yeah, and I've sort of figured that out. Is like you can just sort of let loose, and it brings a lot of freedom to be able to do that. And because a lot of us have experienced this feeling and this shame after, if we've dealt with that for a really long time and then go, oh, I'm allowed to let loose, we probably know where the line is. You know, we know where the real line is. I know where it is with myself. I know the things I don't want to hear from other people. Like that's built in. Most of us are adults and we know where that is. And there's a margin of error on both sides. Sometimes we're going to say things that make people a little bit uncomfortable. And sometimes we're not going to disclose quite enough. But if we err on the side of say closer to everything that I think, you're just going to be yourself and people are going to know you better and you're going to get helpful.
Can I add to that? Can I?
Yeah, absolutely.
That hypercriticism, I think in a way is a good thing, because I come across people who are not hypercritical, the normal people that I talk about, or the people that I assume are normal, and they tend to do things and they don't criticize themselves. I feel like I'm always I am who I am, and I'm always working on myself. I feel like I'm like, you know how people are working on a piece of wood and they're always like chipping it and making it nice and sharp. This hypercriticism inside of me has made me who I am today. It's like, it's a voice of reason and it's a voice of criticism at the same time. So when I'm around other people, a lot of times I'm always watching them, and I'm evaluating them unconsciously and consciously at the same time. And when I watch them, I realize, wow, you know, I don't think they're working on this point, or I don't think they're working on that point, or don't they think that when they do this, like it looks like this? Because I'm able to have like out of body experiences, and I don't know how some of you feel. It's almost like there's two of me. I can come outside of myself and just kind of like look like this. And I always think that somehow a lot of everyday average people just go on their day not thinking about it. And as a result, they don't go through all the necessary changes and all those hyper developmental stages that we go through. And they're not as interesting, and they kind of are boring. And so, I mean, if you look at me from like last week until now, I've been exposed to so many things in just the past 1 week, and I've grown so much. And I could imagine the same thing from all of you. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in our minds, and I feel like it's building us up, and we become these wonderful, amazing people with time. And it just sort of makes other people look boring. I don't know how to say that.
I couldn't agree with that more. Kirk, also, that line that you were saying that, like, you know where your boundaries are and whatnot, how do you establish that?
The thing is a lot of us won't try to establish that boundary because we're scared of getting there. And then, but the answer is trial and error.
Yeah.
And like and the two people in this chat who I've seen be best at it are you and Justin, because you guys just say, and that has brought a community together. And like, if you crossed a line, someone would just say it, you know?
Right.
And because you were willing to go outside of that and say, hey, I need help with this. Hey, I want another person for that. Hey, I need this. That's why we're all here. And like, and what's really interesting is the point that was just being made is that we tend to be able, before we ever get to that ability of being able to, like, you get past the shame and just like reach out to people, we also tend to develop this other ability first to have this conversation with ourselves. Like almost like I can sit and have a conversation with myself in my car, you know, and say, okay, why did we do this? Here's why I did this. Here was my thought process. Okay, did you think about this? Like, I could have a conversation with myself because I don't want to tell anyone else about it.
And there's also that planning process. Like, if you've ever been like, okay, so I wanna go talk to this person over here, and you have like 50 billion conversations in your head on how it could go, so you have the best impression. Like, if it's a job interview or something like that, it's like, okay, so if they say this, I'm going to say this, and then this is where this conversation is going. I've done this.
Yeah, because we're scared of that shame. We don't want to make that big mistake because of how we've been conditioned for our entire lives, because we think differently than everyone else. And once we are able to have that conversation with ourselves and then be able to reach out with other people, and we have both of those skill sets, the amount that we're able to accomplish is exponential. But it takes a long time to get there. You know, I've been diagnosed for 25 years and I'm still working on that second part. Like, it's going to take me a long time to get to the point where I want to be.
Well, that's one of the great things about ADHD too, is that like we're constantly working on ourselves, which I think everyone, ADHD or not, should do. You should always be constantly working on yourself, no matter if you have ADHD or not. We naturally do it. So that's, you know, another positive. Thank you, Kirk, very much. Next up is our newly officially diagnosed BlushingCrafter.
So my thought immediately when I saw the topic in the email was, oh yeah, I totally get that. And most of that for me is not being able to do enough, feeling like I'm not enough. And a lot of it is surrounding household stuff, always being behind, like Pearl was talking about. I have 2 kids. The oldest has moved out, but the youngest lives at home. So I have to follow up on him. And always feeling like no matter how much I fight, no matter how much I work on it, it is not enough. That shame that comes from that. But also being able to keep up with friends. Now, that's something I worked on for years, and I got to a point where the group of friends I have around me are people that can handle me not talking to them or them not talking to me for months, and then we're totally good the moment we get in touch again. That's the kind of friendship I have now with the people that are in my life. But before that, I had shame about that as well, not being able to keep up with people.
Right.
But I have a lot of the I can't do all of these things, not just because of ADHD, but I have physical conditions also limiting me, which is the physical part I'd accepted years ago. I have ME or chronic fatigue syndrome and rheumatism. So, but being able to realize that, okay, I have shame, I feel shame about this, and it's not my fault. There's nothing I can do right now, at least. I'm working on getting to see a psychiatrist and hopefully getting to try medication, taking the steps, one small step at a time. But right now, you know what? All I can do is receive help from someone else, which is actually something that has helped that shame a lot. In the past few days, I learned that we're going to get somebody from my county to clean our floors in multiple rooms every 3 weeks, which is a really big relief. But that internal shame, a lot of it cannot be helped by external things. And I don't have the answer on how to make us not feel shameful about basically falling behind, because that's a huge thing for most of us. I have not spoken to one ADHDer who doesn't feel like they're not behind on something. I was never behind on schoolwork until late in senior high, because I was one of those did everything really great at school kids, but also the very, very hyperactive kid, and always told I was too much and I was talking too much. And I still have a few people that might say, you're being too loud. But those people that say it in a friendly way are basically going, could you wait until after I'm done talking? Instead of, shush, you know? But there's the shame about that too, being too much, talking too much, taking too much space. But F that.
That's what I'm talking about. I like that approach, obviously. Thank you, Blushing, very much. Justin, do you have anything to add to that one?
There are some answers.
I can tell.
A lot of what shame is based on is kind of based on identity, and identity is based on what parents and teachers tell us. So if you don't do what I say and I say you're shit because you're a little kid, you go, oh wow, I must be shit. So every time I was beaten as a kid, basically I'd find a place after, but this was the post-beating breakdown. And I would find a place to say shitty things to myself. Personal development is important, but it has to come from the right place. When it comes from the place of, okay, I'm a human being making mistakes, testing, improving based on those tests, and it's almost like an objective, value neutral kind of thing, then it's a good thing. But it can't come from the place of, I have to keep polishing this stone because this is a fucking awful stone. And that's based on assumptions you were told as a kid, which are shadows of your parents' shadows of your parents' shadows. They're not real. It's intergenerationally ill. And what I would say now is, you are entitled to the serenity you deserved as a child, because you can see your past with adult eyes, knowing if it was a third person, what you would think of it. Only you know, because only you know your life. But that's my advice.
I have to say though, my parents were just like Kirk's, really, really great,
Oh, okay.
encouraging, and never saying anything negative, even though I was a lot. That's just how I was. I did have a really good um, environment in school. There wasn't anything there at all. A lot of the things that I am experience is basically society after that as an adult. I turned 40 in May, and I've had quite a few adult years to hear all of these things from society, the way you quote unquote should be. Drop that effing should word from your life, please.
Blushing's on she said effing twice. This is a huge day.
I don't swear, for those who don't know.
Yeah,
so I don't actually say the full word even.
Love it. Thank you, Blushing. Dorsey.
I have been lucky enough to have let go of all of the shame, and I used to have a lot of shame, a ton of shame. And shame is a very human thing. I mean, we mostly have shame from things that we don't process, from judgments that we make on ourselves based on standards that we never actually set. Then the ADHD part is our ADHD brain ruminates on these shameful memories. And because our ADHD brain loves dopamine, and the emotion of shame triggers the emotion of dopamine flows, we hook onto that and we reuse it and we reuse it. And it's called negative activation. And we use it to push ourselves through life. Some people, they do it and they do a very good job at it. My father, he used that to build a successful veterinary practice. Great for him, but was horrible for me. I was developing an autoimmune disease because I think I was holding so much shame in. It shows in the bodies. We hold it in our bodies. We hold trauma in our bodies when we don't talk about things, when we don't process things. I have no more shame because now I can look back at all the things that I understand now that I understand my ADHD brain, and I have compassion and forgiveness, and I don't overwhelm myself anymore, and I don't put ridiculous expectations because I've analyzed the things that the standards that I want to have. I don't have to have a clean house. I have to have a fine house. I mean, like I can walk through the doors, but I don't have to have a perfect house. So I really want to advocate that ADHD people, however you can, let go of the shame. Stop judging yourself. Stop holding on to other people's opinions and just define for yourself. And medication helps a ton. You might not be on it forever, but medication for me was a revelation and allowed me to tackle these things. And now I can talk about the darkest memories that I ever could, just straight out, and have no shame about it and help other people. So I advocate other people go look into medication and therapy too.
That's awesome, Dorsey. I totally agree with the clean house aspect of that. But truly, like on a serious thing, like you don't have to have a clean house. You don't have to have those things like that. Who said you had to have the perfect house?
Yeah, I did get real coachy and preachy. Sorry about that. I just got such energy. Because I do know, I mean, that shame is horrible. You know, I was a cutter in college. I was so embarrassed and ashamed of it. But now I know why ADHD women do that. I know we need to break out of a dissociative state. I am no longer ashamed of it. I can talk to my college clients about it and help them understand themselves, not to harm themselves, but to explore and learn that shame is a bad way to activate yourself. And you need to find better ways. You need to find interests, and you need to go the healthy route. I've talked about before how our brains are just ready to get into amygdala hijack, into inflammation. And that is so bad for our bodies and shows up in so many bad ways. So addressing the shame is a super good thing for people to do.
Thank you. Geraint.
Hello.
What's up, man?
There's a lot of shame talk going on.
I know.
Made me think about stuff. Don't appreciate it.
I think it gets worse as we go down the line. Like Pearl had it easy; she got to open it up, and I was kind of like loosey goosey here. Well, Justin did a good intro, but yeah, now that we're down to the end, everyone's like, "Ah, fuck."
Big notes, I admit.
Yeah, like you ever been to like a live poetry gig? And everyone's like, that's how I felt during this podcast. Like that seems like the vibe for me. You know, I have joked that ADHD is a shame disorder. So ingrained of the two things, I think. You know, and it's funny what people are saying, because I don't. I actually don't give a fuck what other people think. Like like my friends, my family, people I love, it matters what they think. Everyone else can go to fuck. Like I don't care. It's all internal with me. I am shaming myself. I am constantly comparing myself, not even with other people, but with sometimes other people, but often with the idea of who I think I should be and what I should be able to accomplish.
Right.
And you know, and it's funny because we're on this podcast, and the last time we did one of these, I felt like shit afterwards, right? And it wasn't just because I was hungover. And it was because I'm not in a great place right now. I'm sort of working through some stuff, and that's meant that I've been doing a lot less. And I think I came into this space with all you amazing people who I love, and you're just so inspiring, and you're going out there and you're doing stuff, and that made me focus in on myself of like, what the hell are you doing with your life? What are you going to do? And I don't really know. Because like Kirk, you know, my parents were good. My teachers were shit, but again, I think that's where a lot of my I don't care comes from, because I was lucky enough to be smart. I was lucky enough to be in a family which encouraged inquisitivity and questioning. So like when my teachers were shitty to me, it was because like I didn't go to school. But I was like, well, I'm passing everything, so why is that a problem? But yeah, that internal thing, like I don't actually know how to get past that. I'm being quite vulnerable right now because I'm aware of it. You know, I'm in therapy. I'm working on these things. I'm talking about these things. But it's almost like awareness isn't enough. Like Dorsey, when you said you don't feel shame now, how the hell did you turn that off? Because I know I shouldn't. Like intellectually, I know. But
I saw my brother die with so much shame, and it was horrible. And watching that, you know, really made a big difference. But medication really helped because I was able to get through the therapy to process the things that were causing shame and to just heal, to forgive myself, really.
yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I've wanted to, you know, kill my brother for a while. So, sorry, that's a very dark joke. That's okay, right? We're ADHD.
It was impulsive and dark, Geraint. That is ADHD sometimes.
Yeah, that's how I do. Anyway, so yeah, that's me, I guess, and that's my opinion on shame. I'll end it with a wildly inappropriate joke. Good.
Always end on a high
Do
note.
you care if I jump in here? Yeah.
No,
like
anyone can jump in.
Yeah. We are hardest on ourselves because we know what we're capable of.
Mhm.
And most of us in this group, our brains go 200 miles an hour all day long. And while other people have the luxury of focusing on their one task or their one improvement, we tend to think of every single way we can improve all day long. I should be working out. I should be going back to school. I should be doing really good at my job. And I, want to compete in this triathlon later this year because I thought about it once. And I should go back to working out, and I should be eating healthy, and I need to do all those every single day by waking up at 5 a.m. And I don't do that. And like we process all those in a row every 4 minutes, and it just happens all day, all day nonstop. So we tend to beat the snot out of ourselves because of it. And like, it'll never end if we keep letting ourselves do that. I think it's very normal to be hard on yourself with ADHD.
Can I tell you what helped for me? Sorry to interrupt right in the middle.
Go ahead.
For me, I box, and boxing, and I do the triathlons, and I do wake up at 5 a.m. And boxing has really, really been the best thing. Body combat for me almost saved me from all that. And the reason for that is this. I often feel a lot of pressure in my forehead, like literally right in the center, because I feel like all the thoughts converge and overlap and become transparent. And it just becomes hard to distinguish one thought from another, because we have all of these high expectations and all of these thoughts and all these criticisms that come in all at one time. When you box, you focus in that center. So you have like, you know, your fist and your boom, 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 you know, when you have that heavy metal in your ears, you know, like all this like scream, I'm a metalhead. So I put this music on and I get my boxing gloves, and you have no idea the pleasure one feels when you're just boom, 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 and you're working on these specific critiques and you're concentrating right here. After like an hour, I have like removed 1 month of built up within me. And there's this euphoria afterwards. And I've come across a lot of different people who've also used body combat to deal with that. And if I could tell the difference if I don't box, and I can tell the difference if I don't do body combat. I can just tell the difference in the organization of my mind and where the thoughts are swimming. It's kind of like, with me, everything is more physical. I don't know about everybody else. Some people are more mental. Some people are more physical. With me, I feel it physically. And it makes a very big difference. So if I've had a really hard day, I feel like I have to regulate it. And it doesn't mean I had a really hard day because I worked so hard. It's just I was really hard on my own mind. If I go work out, it goes out. It goes out with my fist. And I just feel that concentrating right here really does make it makes a really big difference. So I don't know about you guys.
I'm kind of the same in that way. I will leave work early if I feel like I'm not right, and I have to go out and shot firewood like that instant, or I am not, okay. Thank you, Geraint, for that. Kirk, everybody, unbelievable. Leo.
What is up? Oh, let's see. Thoughts about shame. I've got a few of those, I think. First of all, I do want to say that there's an author, Brene Brown, who her writing on shame is absolutely phenomenal and completely like reset my relationship with like the way I think about myself. So I highly recommend her writings. But no, this is something I've kind of like dealt with a little bit lately too, because like while everything looks like it's going well, like I did the very ADHD thing of like getting like one piece of negative feedback last week and then like thinking about that piece of negative feedback for like a week and analyzing like every way it's meaning that my entire life is falling apart. And like kind of through that process, like I really tried to step back from it and like figure out where that's coming from. And like, yeah, we do tend to hold ourselves to such a high standard. And like, I've kind of forced myself into situations where like I'm working through like a ton of shit all at once because, ADHD, and that's the best way to do it, right? Just force yourself to do it all at once. But yeah, it's amazing. Like even being aware of kind of that feeling of shame and where that's rooted, it can still like really take hold. And so I think for us, it's really important to be able to identify it. And I think I saw Dorsey talking about like, yeah, identifying like the negative thinking and like, once you start seeing those patterns and you start kind of comparing them, and like one of the things I realized too is I think kind of the world news and being the negative sense of that tends to actually play more into how I feel about myself than I kind of realized too. Because like I've started to identify patterns where like when things are like kind of going negative in the world and there's a lot of focus on like, all the negativity and the violence, it's like that tends to push my thinking more towards like this negative interpretation of like everything around. And so I think it's really important to kind of like identify these patterns and try to adjust them, and even just being aware of them. Like one of the things I kind of like stop myself from doing is like, okay, I was kind of getting and like, okay, well maybe I need to start making like some decisions of where to like cut things off or like change things if they're not going the right way. And so I was really proud of myself for like taking a step back and saying like, okay, well let's actually like wait and see. Let's let the emotions pass. Let's kind of, let all of it like play out a little bit before I'm like making decisions. And Dorsey, you've got your hand up there. So.
Well, I just wanted to say, you mean the cognitive traps?
Yes.
Yeah. People should go look these up because our brains play some pretty mean tricks on us to get that dopamine, to get that rise out of ourselves. And I know that a lot of people might not be aware of behavior that they do to get a rise in themselves that might be harming other people too.
Yeah, and it's like go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that sometimes self-destructive behaviors and thoughts are essentially self-harm for respectable looking adults. So basically, every time I do something self-destructive, to me, that's self-harm. Even though it might just be, eating a cheeseburger. But if I know that I'm eating a cheeseburger, it's normally because I'm doing better at the gym than I'm used to doing. And basically, I'm starting to shift out of my self-image into a healthy self-image quickly. Let's burn that fire down. I think when people cut themselves, that shows. I think when people have dependent behavior in this society, it's so common that it doesn't stand out. You're weird if you don't have dependent behavior. So I think there's a guy called Richard Grannon. He has a video called Solving the Riddle of Love. And this is why we beat ourselves up, because if we couldn't be good enough for someone else, we can't be good enough for ourselves. And do you, Leo, do you find it hard to accept compliments? And when you do get compliments, is it a very mental thing? Like, you have complimented me, I will take the compliment. I will now add the compliment into my data bank of self.
Yeah, definitely have to like actively process it. Like, you were saying something nice about me, and this is okay, I guess. It seems weird.
Yes.
Like I don't know why you're doing that, but you are in fact doing it, and I guess we can like move forward with that. It's just weird. And I don't know if you want to compliment me like that. That seems weird. Don't do that. But.
Are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure? Is that? Do you mean that? Yeah, I get so scared. Like when I hear someone compliment me, I'm like, oh no.
You're talking to the wrong person, obviously. Like,
yeah. Are you seeing the right name on this piece of paper?
I apologize. I apologize to all of you for the compliments.
Yeah.
That's how I'm training it out of myself. I'm just hanging out with Lobow more often.
Yeah, that's.
Just saying that for people who have kids, like Leo, I know you've got a kid. Breaking the cycle is so important because our parents didn't know this. Our parents didn't have what we have. The knowledge and all of this research, and we have a chance to break cycles, and we should all be cycle breakers.
I just want to add that a lot of you, so because I come from Iran. I was born in Iran, and I spent the first 9 years of my life in Iran. In Iran right now, and in pretty much across most of Middle East, in fact, all of Middle East and all of Africa, in the Muslim world, ADHD is a Western thing. It doesn't exist. And I could sit here and I can talk about it to an entire room full of people. I can go to any conference. I can hold up, anything. I could put up charts and I can talk about it. They will say it doesn't exist. So for all of you, it's kind of like, it's weird because this is what we had talked about on the show, is that when you are an immigrant and you have an ADHD, it's like a double plaque. I'm an immigrant, I have ADHD, and I have to prove to everybody else who comes from where I come from that I have something that they don't believe exists. Until this stuff regenerates on the other side of this planet, it takes a long time. Sometimes it'll take 1 or 2 generations for them to even accept it. Like, for instance, my brother has autism. He has high functioning autism. He's a genius. He has like above average IQ. He's like in his 30s now. My parents still do not accept the fact that he has autism. I mean, I have sat there and it's like, listen, this boy is going to be screwed. Like, he needs some kind of therapy. He needs this. He needs that. Oh, no. I remember my parents, I used to tell him, I said, do you not think that he's just a little bit unusual as a child? It was like raising a robot. And it was like, my parents were like, no, when he grows up, he's just going to go to school and forget all about it. This is very much like a Brown type of thing, because autism we don't have this in Iran.
So can I interject? I remember you talking about that when we spoke, and I remember, I think what I said to you is we all feel like immigrants with ADHD, no matter where we are. So would it really matter if they accept it, or, no matter how long it takes, whatever culture you're from, we're going to feel like an immigrant?
Honestly, it's not even that. It's not even that. When you it's a little bit more complicated when you're talking to multi-generational type of people. And I think we talked about this when one feels out of place from their own culture. For me, it's not the fact that I assimilated and I became part of this culture and I'm like Americanized and Westernized and so on. It's that having ADHD also separates me from everyone else in my community, because nobody accepts it.
Well, right, and that's why we were trying to build a community.
That's
As a teacher, I can make it better. Dochtare hub.
What?
Dochtare?
Dochtare
hub.
Dochtare
hub.
I'm having some education flashbacks to languages.
He just said good girl.
I said good girl. In Farsi. Yes, that's Farsi emotional support, bitches. Woo! Sorry.
When it comes to the compliment part, as a follow-up to that, y'all saw my reaction when I was complimented in the very beginning. I am getting really good compared to where I was, but I still have a problem with properly, immediately accepting it. It's one of those, I gotta consciously say, oh, yes, this is true. I know this is true. And repeat that a couple of times in my mind, and then say thank you. I'm working on getting to where I can confidently say thank you and not blush like tomato red, which I did.
Jesse, ADHD and shame. What are your thoughts here, buddy?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for inviting me here. It's great to meet. I've known some of you on Twitter and stuff before, but it's great to see all the faces here. But while some people were talking, I was, multitasking, as probably most of us are doing. And I looked up just real quick, like what is the actual dictionary definition of shame? And it says a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. And that really sort of struck me, because I feel like growing up, the shame that I felt was because I wasn't actually conscious of wrong or foolish behavior, but I didn't have anything else to explain it, because that's what everyone else said that it was. It was like I would try to do things and the stuff I did didn't line up. It was like there was, apparently they handed out some book called Common Sense and I never got it. So I was just figuring out my own way to do things. And then I basically adopted consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior because everyone else called it wrong or foolish. And I didn't know what else to call it. I just knew that it wasn't working out, which is tough, because I think so many people with ADHD, and maybe this is universal, but I think particularly with ADHD, so many of us growing up have such good intentions. Like, we are really trying to please people. We're trying to make our parents happy. We're trying to make our teachers happy. And everything we do just falls short and doesn't work. And we don't know why, especially for those of us not diagnosed for a long time. There's nothing to grab onto. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 36. And then it was just oh my gosh, that's everything looking back is I have this whole new, it's like my whole world was black and white. And now I can look back and see everything in color. It's completely changes your perspective on everything looking back. And I wouldn't say that I'm over my shame. Like Dorsey said, which sounds amazing. But I would say it's really reframed my historical shame. Like, I feel like shame from before my diagnosis, I look at that in a totally different light, because at the time, like, I used to, growing up, I felt really bad that every teacher would, put me in the front of class, or put me in the back of class, or put my desk out in the hallway, or whatever it was. It was like, there was always something that a teacher had to do with me. Like, it wasn't just like I came and sat in my seat and everything was fine. Like, something needed to happen. And I just felt shame because I didn't know why. Like, why am I always the kid that the teacher has to move around, or specifically put me next to the person that is, like always raising their hand, or, like the good student in class, they would always like put me next to them. And I was like, why is that always the case? Yeah. So I don't know. One of a tweet I did a while back, that's like my pinned tweet, because I feel like it speaks so much to growing up for me, which is ADHD is constantly being told you're doing it wrong, even though your way also works. Because I always felt like I would find a way to make things happen. But I'd still get in trouble because it wasn't like the way, whatever, that book of common sense that I never got. Everyone was using that same guidebook, and I never had it. So I was just sort of winging it the whole time. Yeah. And also similar to, is it Geraint? Geraint? I don't know how to say your name. Geraint, is that it?
Yeah, Geraint. It rhymes with pint.
With pint, Geraint. Got it. You were talking about how at some point you basically just like stopped caring what people thought. Like, I don't care what the heck other people think. And that's where I got to as well. I don't know exactly when it happened, but at some point I was just like, something about me is broken or weird or whatever, and I'm never reaching everyone else's expectations for me. And so if I just continue to try and do that, like, I'm not going to survive. Like, this isn't going to work out for me. And so at some point I just had to make like a survival choice of like I just basically like mentally like cut it off. Like, I don't care what my teachers think, what my parents think, what my friends, I don't care what anyone else thinks anymore. I need to just sort of rely on what is going to work for me. And which is good and bad. Like, good because, hey, I survived. But bad because it, really like, caused a lot of problem with my relationships. Like, some people mentioned that they had really good parents, and I had pretty good parents. Like, I can't complain about my parents that much because they didn't know what was going on. But it was not like we had a real happy, healthy family growing up. Like, we fought a lot. And when I basically cut them off, it was like, it was really hard. We're back to a healthy place now, but it's that shame is just like so deep and personal, and just like, yeah, I don't know how it basically, like, somebody, I can't remember who mentioned it, basically I think it was Geraint, that mentioned shame, like ADHD almost being like a shame disorder. And I feel like so much of what ADHD causes really does, like, it like builds up that shame muscle, and it just sort of affects everything we do, because we're either like dealing with or coping with the shame, or desperately trying to avoid it. Yeah, and that's a bunch of quick rambling I have on shame, I guess.
That's not rambling. That made complete sense, actually. Jesse, thank you very, very much for that. Laura, sorry that you are the last one called on. But
it's okay. I listen to every one of you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Hey, everyone. I'm from Brazil. And I got my diagnosis last year with 27 years old. Now I'm 28. And it's been a crazy roller coaster since then, emotional roller coaster and everything, to understand that I work in a different way, and different is not necessarily worse, And I've been doing therapy for more than 10 years now. So it's been a long time since I've been trying to understand myself and understand all of those things that happens to me on a daily basis, And with the diagnosis, I got a lot of context, Jesse, I wrote each and everything that I could relate with every one of you, because I didn't want to forget. And I'm sorry if my English is bad or anything. I'm a little rusty, you know, but I think you guys can understand me.
Do not apologize. Your English is great. Do not worry.
Thank you. And Jesse was saying that that the late diagnosis, brought him like colors to his previous black and white life. And I think I can relate so much to that, because I think it breaks the cycle of this pattern thinking of I'm wrong, I'm broken, you know, and we're mostly likely to feel like this because we live in a neurotypical society, you know, and they expect things from us and productivity and a type of being, you know, and living in society. And this brings us shame, because I think this is the main thing, you know, because the expectations are so high, and even the neurotypicals, they don't get benefit, you know, from it, and from this crazy productivity cycle. And I could relate to each one of you guys saying, and I wrote a lot of things here, like my head, you know, so many arrows and notes, and it's crazy. And I think I had my college experience. I'm a teacher, and I'm going to do a post-graduation course now in neuropsychology. So I'm really happy and excited about it, because I want to help other adults, you know, that like us, and with this process, you know, because I think it takes one to see one, you know, and we share a brain, you know, and you guys don't even have to explain to me, you know, I feel, I live the same things as you. And it's so crazy to relate. And I'm from Brazil, and I'm so far away, and you guys are also far away. And it's such an honor, you know, to meet people that go through the same struggles as me, and that can be better, you know, can learn and can talk, it can be real. You know, when I did the podcast with Lobow, we were talking about people should keep up with us. We shouldn't slow down our rhythm or our thinking, or speak in a lower voice. You know, people should just let us be, you know, be real and be honest. We feel our emotions, and it's rawness, you know, I don't know how to say it, but it's like we feel when we're angry, we are so angry, and we're happy or excited. It's, you know, it's so intense, and it is a blessing, but it's not most of the time, but sometimes it feels like a curse. But I think we have to direct, you know, our energy and what we have in our strengths, and not just focus on the bad things that people and society and the common sense and all of those things say that we are wrong and whatever, and that I don't agree, you know. And I did my graduation degree in education, and I did an in-depth course of special education with the perspective in diversity and inclusion. So one thing that I want to say to all of you, and I only got this amazing experience in college, you know, because in school it was awful. I was good at English, at art, science, but math and all those kind of stuff, I couldn't.
I forget it.
But now I'm gonna do a post degree in neuropsychology. You know, that's so crazy to me.
You're gonna glow. You're gonna be perfect, because I think ADHD, it's like it really makes a person a wonderful teacher, because you can multitask, you can comprehend your students on a level that their parents won't even be able to comprehend them because of your intuitiveness. Oh, you're gonna be so good.
Yeah, but it's like my teacher, and he's an amazing teacher. His name is Gustavo. Here we say Gustavo, and he is an amazing teacher. And he did a test, an evaluation, you know, with our class, and he did like 2 questions. He asked 2 questions, and he said, you can write a poem, you can come here to me and speak out loud, or you can draw, or you can, just show me what you've learned this semester. And this to me was so, like, I get emotional when I talk about it, because it's so, it should be like this, because all of us are different. And what I wanted to highlight here to all of you, so you don't forget, every mind and everybody, body, experiences the life and the world in a different way. So that's what I live by, and to me, this is the core of education, should be the core of education,
And I think why a lot of us have a hard time in school, for those people who go to a very strict school environment, is that we need an open environment, because our mind is multidimensional. So that's, you glow, right?
And it has to be a safe environment, so we can feel safe. And I felt safe in college, and it's such a terrifying place, and I didn't know about the ADHD, so I got my essay, the final essay, and without knowing about my ADHD. And I only got to do it because of my teachers, because of the friends that I made here. I came from an abusive relationship. I was 14, and then I got this 7-year abusive relationship. And I wanted to talk about this because I remember, I think it was Sarah. It was Sarah that I don't know. I don't remember if it was Sarah or Blushing, if she talked about her marriage and that it didn't work. And it happens to a lot of us, with the relations that we have and how we relate to people, how we communicate. And we are so special, and we're so real. And we don't have this nowadays. I don't feel like we have. And like in the society, I mean, and I had this the relationship. So I had the abusive relationship, and the guy that I was dating all those 7 years, I was like a kid. I was 14. I was like a teenager. I was, a girl, just a little girl, and everything that I can see that through this lens of the diagnosis of the ADHD, he was such an asshole, he was such a dickhead, I don't know even how to explain it, because everything that I did, like my food disorders, everything that I was, he was so judgmental. And the shame of that, like, until today, it's been like 5 years since I moved here to Florianopolis. It's an island in Brazil. There's a lot of beaches. It's an amazing place. And I got to meet so many new people, and people that loved me, people that wanted to be with me, that adored me because of, inspired with me, just be me. And like, I'm doing those TikToks now and everything. Like, it's so crazy to me that someone wants to listen to me, to my story, to my life or whatever. And I think shame comes in some part of it, in this process. And
Laura, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And you actually led me into something that's kind of funny. Is you have like half TikTok and half Twitter are the people that are.
I don't have Twitter because I can't keep up.
Yeah,
I can't keep up, but it's okay.
So thank you, Laura, very much. That's perfect.
I'm
like honored that you're taking notes. I mean, we're not even.
Yes, I got so many notes. If you want,
I was like, what?
I can talk each and every person that talked and what I could relate to, because we share a brain, guys.
But we can't all use it at the same time.
Yeah,
one of us at a time.
That's so true.
So do I have to go on shame, or do we? Do I have to do shame? Okay. No. Actually, I had something I was gonna say until Geraint, you spoke, and that really hit me. What you were talking about was the internal. Most of you know about my friend and his previous wife or whatnot.
I feel a whole lot of shame that I couldn't help her and that it didn't work out. And so kind of for the first time ever, I started thinking about like, was I shamed into, is this some sort of a guilt thing? The reason I'm doing this, like, is it guilt or is it that I really want to do it? I'm speaking completely honestly now. And then I said, told myself, no, it's not. The opposite, we're all opposites of what the world expects. The opposite of shame is honor. And I have focused on the honorable things, which has made the shame that I feel much, much less. When you have honor in what you're doing, that you truly believe in what you're doing and the reasons behind it, the shame is not nearly as intense. Usually this is some motivational conclusion, but the bottom line is I've never been so shamed in my life that I couldn't motivate this girl to see how good she was because I could motivate a fucking cinder block. Mm. And that hurt. But choose honor as the opposite of shame, and you'll win every time. Of course, you feel all the emotions heightened times 50. So did I read too much into that? Probably. But do I place a lot of emphasis on honor too? Maybe way too much? Absolutely. So that's not a bad thing. So at the end of the day, I am so fucking proud of this. And there is no shame involved. So thank you.
You should be proud. You should be proud. You connect all of us. It's such a nice place to be, and to be able to be real without judgments, because we understand each other and we feel this shame on a daily basis. The compliments, I think we can't internalize, the compliments. We listen to it and then we don't want to, are you talking to the right person? I think, who said? I think it was Leo. Well, but it's this feeling, And
the one thing I think I said to Sarah when we spoke was that, it's a double-edged sword, and I'm choosing to sharpen one side and use that side only. I'm not trying to sharpen a dull blade. So that's where we are. And I know it's probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense the way I'm explaining this, but the shame that I felt helped me be one of the most honorable people I know. And I know that about myself.
So I think you're touching on something very, very important here. With shame is a very powerless feeling. When you feel the shame, you have no control over it. It's the doing the wrong thing, no matter what. No matter what, you can't do the right thing, and that's where you feel that shame. Flipping that to being honor is taking control over what you can and saying, look, I couldn't, it wasn't enough. I did what I could, but it wasn't enough. But I'm going to take what I did and I'm going to amplify that, and I'm going to do the best I can to make it enough the next time. And taking that control, that is flipping the script. It's about taking back control and deciding to do everything in your power to take control and to use it.
I just want to add this to the whole shaming thing. It's something that I learned to do this year. We need to stop saying I'm sorry. It used to be a habit for me. Oh, I'm so sorry I have ADHD. I'm so sorry I butted. I'm so sorry. It had become a habit. We shouldn't apologize, and it's something that I had to mentally stop doing in the past year. I no longer say I'm sorry for anything.
That's a great point. I like that. All right, so we are literally 10 minutes. You have 1 minute each to tell me what you are most proud of. Pearl, you're up. What are you most proud of recently?
That's what we talked about. Finding my path in life and finding my way, finding my strength, and finding out that I was born to do this career path. And I'm just so excited to challenge myself, and I'm challenging myself every single day.
Hell yes.
Career path, yeah.
Love it. Sarah.
Oh my goodness, time limit. I think I'm right now proud of myself for stepping out onto this medium. I mean, I have a degree in communication. I love radio. I love producing TV and audio and whatnot. But to be standing in the spotlight is something that I'm proud of.
That's awesome. That's very, very cool. Justin. No, I'm kidding. Kirk.
I think I'm actually, so I was going to tell you this beforehand.
Oh God.
I got a text from I think it was my dad. My uncle went and listened to a couple episodes, and he's a licensed psychologist. He's fantastic. He does a lot of like community work, a lot of work with families. And he wanted to like reach out to me and was just like, hey, you did a really good job. I thought, there was a lot of thoughtful insight, and like just that people that are out there in the field working with people in real time every day are starting to find this and listen to it and get insight, or and that was super cool. I didn't expect that. Didn't know
awesome.
That other people in my family were finding out, and like that was a really, really cool feeling to hear someone who's knowledgeable and meaningful in this community come and say, hey, this podcast is doing good work. So
that's all. Thank you so much on that, because my psychiatrist asked me the other day why I said to fuck off in one of my episodes about psychiatry in general. So that was a good time. I was like, no, just write the script though. I still get the medicine, right? So that helped. Blushing. What are you most proud of?
First and foremost, standing up for myself for such a really long time. Getting the diagnosis is because I fought hard and because I had support around me. But after that, I've taken the initiative to contact different people, including my GP, but also my pain clinic doctor, who is referring me to a psychiatrist. But if that falls through, because that person has a lot to do and only one day a week to work, I've already been in touch and made an agreement with a psychiatrist to be able to go see that person one time in person and then video later, because I live far away from everywhere. But I took the initiative to do all these things. And I'm proud of that.
I love it. God, I love that. Geraint, what are you most proud of, buddy?
I have managed to sleep enough 3 days in a row. That's like my high bar at the moment. But that's a good one, I think.
That's a really high bar. I haven't slept in a couple days, so you're beating me on that. Leo, what are you most proud of?
I don't know. There's a few things, but I think really for me it was about figuring out a way to, like I mentioned, I got a kind of negative feedback that I'm not used to last week, and really taking the time to process it out and kind of like, okay, yes, there was negative feedback, and that's actually okay. It's a good thing because it gives me some place to work on. And then I implemented it, and I realized, like, okay, well, this isn't going to be something that I can fix overnight, but I can at least start making progress toward it. And then being okay with the fact that, like, okay, it's a problem. I can work on it. It's not something that needs to be fixed immediately. It's okay to take time. And for me, that's pretty big, because I'm really feel like everything should happen now. Maybe that's an ADHD thing. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, just like being aware, like, okay, I can change things over the course of time. I understand that's an issue. And then, being more upfront with people too, like kind of, I'm really good at being open on like Twitter. The thing I'm not always great at being open is like in person at work, in meetings. And so figuring out how to kind of like shift that has been pretty big for me. And I'm probably over a minute now, so I'm going to stop there.
It's an imaginary clock. Jesse, what are you most proud
They all
of?
are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, lately it would be, so some of you probably know, but I'm working on a book on ADHD. I've been working on that for like 6 months or so. And I got to the point where I was able to send it out to some like alpha readers. So I've got some people reading it and like providing feedback and stuff like that. And I'm super proud of it because about like 2 or 3 months after I started writing, I basically didn't write for like 2 or 3 months. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I've told all these people that I'm doing this, and I haven't, like, every week that goes by, I haven't done anything. And then, it was about a month ago, I got kind of a spark, and then now I'm like in it again. And I'm like, okay, now I can see the finish line. There's still a lot of work to get there, but I got to the point of sending out to people and I'm getting great feedback. And yeah, so that's what I'm most proud of, the book's, it's actually happening now. And I don't have to, shamefully like admit to people that I've failed, because it's going to happen, people. It's happening.
Well, it's because you didn't fail. The book is coming out. So congratulations. That's fucking awesome. Dorsey, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of myself for going on my own timeline and building my business and sticking with it and going into the scary places and embracing that shit. That's all.
I love it. Laura, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of now, at the moment, of advocating for myself. I'm advocating for myself and for my health, and I'm questioning things, and I'm being able to prioritize some things in my life, in a better way, being functional. I'm being functional because of the medication now, and it's crazy this for me, like being able to cook my food and eat and clean the house in a regular way, not too much. But it was such a hard thing for me before. And it's not just the medication, it's the diagnosis, the information, this conversations that I have, and these exchanges, that we have. And I'm proud of that.
That's awesome. I can honestly say that y'all have helped me get a huge weight off of my shoulders in this, and as of this moment, I have never in my entire life been more proud to have ADHD than I am right now having done this. So I am proud of my ADHD because it is fucking honorable.
What is your profession?